I still remember when I first started making music. It was around like 15 years ago. Festivals like Tomorrowland were exploding. Electronic music was everywhere. And for the first time it felt like DJs are the new rock stars. And I was completely hooked. I wanted to make music too. But the moment I actually tried, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had no idea where to start. No roadmap, no clear steps, just a ton of software, conflicting advice, and pure frustration. I began messing around in GarageBand on an old crappy Mac, later switched to FL Studio. There were a couple of breaks throughout all the years because, well, life got in the way, but I always returned to making electronic music. And even after all those years, that feeling of not really knowing what to do next never fully went away. Because here's the thing, making music, especially electronic music, is incredible. But it's also one of the most non-transparent creative fields out there. There are no universal rules, no one-size-fits-all formula, just ton of videos and content and tutorials that makes it even harder because you don't know where to start or what skill you should develop next. It's easy to get lost. But here's the good thing, making music has never been so accessible than right now. Sure, there's still a learning curve, and if I could go back in time and teach my past self some lessons, I would have saved years of trial and error. And that is why I'm making this video. And hopefully a whole series to share what I've learned along the way. I'm not here to act like a guru because no one really ever masters the process of making music or getting your music out there and get people to listen to your music. We're all constantly learning. But if you just started out or thinking about making music or produce for a while now and feel stuck, I completely know that feeling. And this video is for you. So let's get into it. Here are 10 lessons I wish I knew when I started making music. This is probably something that is actually pretty obvious, but still hard to accept. Making music is a long-term skill, and it takes a lot of time to become really good at it. It's like learning a language or an instrument. The first months or even years can feel really frustrating from time to time when you're making music. But remember that everybody goes through this process. Even your most favorite producer. Every pro you admire was a beginner once. And in terms of producing, some days feel like you're not improving at all or not as fast enough as you actually want to. And some other days it's kind of uplifting and you feel like, okay, I completely cracked the code. And that is completely normal to change between those two extremes. The key is to always keep going, even when it feels sometimes that you're not improving at all. It's like going to the gym. You don't expect to see any results the first day you're working out, but over time, when you compare yourself to your past self, you see how much you actually improve. And that is the beauty. And then there's also the social media thing, which is kind of stressing out all of the time because it feels like everybody else is improving faster. Everyone else is more successful than me. But always remember that social media is just a big flashy highlight reel. There are actually few people which also share their failures. So always remember that they're only showing you the good sides of everything. Real life doesn't work this way. I know it's hard, but don't compare yourself to others. The only comparison that is worth making is comparing yourself now versus your past self. Your first 50 or even 100 or even 200 tracks won't be your best, but every song that you make, every song that you finish teaches you something and teaches you even more than any tutorial ever could. So don't feel stressed. The road is long, really, really long. Just enjoy the process and always remember why you're making music in the first place and why you love doing it so much. When you're just starting out, it's easy to think that more layers equals better sound, but actually the complete opposite is the case. Many sounds clutter your mix and create problems like muddiness or phase issues. Instead of stacking endless synths and effects in your project, focus on a few strong elements that each have their own space. And make sure that you don't work on a project for too long because this kills creativity at one point.
Another thing, when I'm working on a project and gets too complicated, that is a big driver for not thinking creatively anymore. You are now this juggler of 100 tracks, you know, and making big decisions becomes incredibly difficult.
So take a break from time to time, or divide your song into multiple sections just to maintain this creative attitude from the beginning when you start a song till the end when you're finishing a song. And pro tip, check your track in mono. If sounds disappear or sound completely hollow, you definitely have phasing issues. Fix them by EQing, aligning layers better, or reducing stereo width. Music production is a never-ending journey. No one is ever truly perfect, and music evolves, so should you. If you stop improving, others won't. There are always producers pushing their sound forward. But that doesn't mean that you should binge watch tutorials on YouTube now. The most important thing are your practical skills, so the time that you spend in your DAW experimenting, actually making music. That is the best teacher that you can get. Tutorials are definitely helpful, and you should watch some of them from time to time, but practice is what makes real progress. When you're passionate about the music that you create, it will come through in your tracks. And if you're not feeling it, your audience won't either. So make the music you actually love. It's easy to chase trends, but your best work and what makes you unique as a producer is the music that you believe in yourself. And don't let other people tell you that you only have to stick to one genre, especially in electronic music where there's like popping up a new genre every I don't know, 5 minutes. Your unique perspective is what will set you apart, so create from the heart. That's how you stand out. Damn, that's cheesy.
Man, you corny!
No one's perfect, right? So here's your reminder, you don't need to master every tiny detail in music production to make or release great songs. Don't let perfectionism hold you back. Some people say you're not a real producer if you're not making every sound from scratch. That's just some elitist nonsense. You don't need to be a sound design genius or an expert in every tiny little detail. Use presets, use samples. Many pro producers do as well, I promise. Because at the end of the day, your audience won't even care if your song is made of a sample, or if you use the preset, or if you actually made the sound from scratch. As long as the song has a good vibe, no one cares. Only some other producers will actually recognize or even care whatsoever. I found a perfect TikTok a while back that sums this up perfectly.
But let's be honest, if you're a producer, at least once in your career, you've probably heard someone say that
You're not an intellectual, you're a fake and a fraud.
At the end of the day, it's about making music for the people who will listen, and they don't care whether your snare drum is made in Faceplant or if it's from Vengeance Essentials.
Full link in the description. So this one is pretty straightforward. There's an overwhelming amount of tutorials out there, which is great, but you can get lost in watching countless tutorials. So focus on your skills in your DAW, your practical skills, I already mentioned that. And when you encounter something, a skill that could be useful at that point that you don't know about, then go to YouTube and find a tutorial that helps you. This is the most efficient way to pinpoint and master the things that you actually need, and don't waste any time on watching tutorials on topics that you don't need at the current stage. So learn what you need when you need it. So while I was cutting this video, I realized that my microphone stopped working, so I had to record all this stuff from this point on again. Yeah, sometimes tech fails you as well. So that's another lesson. Shit happens. I know this is tough for a lot of producers, but finishing skills is a skill like any other, so like sound design or mixing, and you have to learn it. Sometimes it's good to let a project rest, but overall you should unlearn the habit of stopping. If you never finish tracks, it becomes a pattern, a very unhealthy pattern, and this kills progress. Forget the idea that every song needs to be perfect. That's impossible. Even if your track doesn't turn out how you imagined it in the first place, you still gained experience. And every song, good or bad, teaches you something. It makes you a better producer. If you're stuck, limit yourself. So only use the most important sounds and push forward instead of overthinking. Reference tracks can speed up your workflow and help you finish tracks faster. Simply drag a track from the same genre into your DAW and it instantly gives you a framework for arrangement, structure and energy levels, and you don't have to copy it, but it's a very helpful guide. And pro tip, make an arrangement map, either in your DAW or a spreadsheet or just in your mind. This helps you identify where drops, breakdowns and transitions happen, so you can structure your own track more easily. And you can also use reference tracks for the chord progressions or some drum patterns or even mixing balance. Just tweak them from this point on and make them your own. And here's a challenge for you. Try to recreate your favorite song completely from scratch, because nothing teaches you better than following, or at least trying to follow, the workflow of a pro. I've also linked a super helpful article from iZotope in the description on how to use reference tracks efficiently. Trust me, you don't need the most expensive gear. I know sometimes it's very tempting and I struggle with it too, sometimes, or a lot, always, especially on Black Friday.
How did I spend that much money?
But at the end of the day, the stock plugins of FL Studio, Ableton or most other DAWs are potentially already enough to make very good music. When starting out, a good pair of headphones is all you need. A MIDI keyboard, yeah, nice to have, but the piano roll in your DAW works just fine for chord progressions and things like that. Gear doesn't make great music. Creativity and skill do. And even pro producers with crazy expensive studios, at the end of the day, many of them end up on the couch with the laptop making the next banger track. Why? Because it's enough to make really good music. And especially in the beginning, when your music isn't paying any bills yet, every spare dollar that you have is better invested in marketing, for example, than the next shiny piece of tech or the next plugin that you actually don't need, if you're honest. This one is easy to forget, but it's the most important one. Making music is one of the most amazing things on this planet, and nothing beats the feeling of coming up with a great idea or finishing a song that you're actually proud of. Creativity thrives when you're having fun, but when you start stressing out too much about growth, perfection or numbers, it can suck out the joy of the process. So enjoy the journey, experiment, play around, make weird sounds. The best ideas often come when you're just having fun and just messing around in your DAW. Because at the end of the day, that's also why we all started making music, right? And why we love doing it so much. So those are just a few things that I wish I knew when I started making music. If even one of those lessons can help you sidestep any of the frustrations that I ran into throughout all these years, then this video did its job. Keep in mind that making music is a journey. There's no finish line, just constant growth. Keep learning, keep creating, and most importantly, enjoy yourself. If you found this helpful, drop a comment and let me know which of these lessons resonated with you the most. So don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the future videos. Also share your music, I love to hear it, and listen to my music and follow my playlist if you like progressive house and melodic techno. Now go, make some amazing music. See you soon.